Hello everyone. In 2018, phone makers thought that this was the best way to maximize screen area while minimizing the size of the bezels. This is the Honor View 20, and apparently the best way to hide the front-facing camera is by hiding it in plain sight. I'm Ricky with GSM Arena, and this is our video review of the Honor View 20. The View 20 is the latest smartphone from Honor, and the first thing you'll notice about this phone is the back of it. The Honor 8 was the first device by Honor with super reflective glass, and the View 20 just takes it to a whole new level. The chevron design is very appropriately shaped like a V. After all, in China this phone is known as the V20. This is definitely one of the most attractive phones I've ever seen in person. Let's talk about this hole punch camera. This is the latest trend in smartphones, and Honor achieved this by putting the selfie camera behind the glass and cut a hole out of the panel. I'm very impressed at how the usual proximity and light sensors are still placed in such a tiny bezel area, and the earpiece sits right between the frame and the screen. Looking up closely, you can see a slight discoloration in the display just around the front camera, but Honor said this is a process done intentionally so that the screen's backlight doesn't leak into the camera and ruin your selfies. It's not really noticeable anyway, unless you really stare at it. The display itself is a 6.4-inch IPS LCD panel with curved corners, and again, the bezels on this phone are very thin, only slightly larger than the Mate 20 Pros. This display's brightness maxes out at 479 nits, which is bright enough for most places, but may not be enough to see the screen in direct sunlight. The phone comes with a vivid color profile by default, but you can switch to a more accurate setting if you'd like. Something else to look out for. I've noticed some fading near the edges of the screen, and it won't be a huge deal to most people, but if you really stare at it, you'll just look silly doing that. The rear glass is curved and fits precisely around the metal frame, which has a matte finish and feels great in the hand. On the back, there's a fingerprint scanner and a 48-megapixel dual camera, which we'll get to a little bit later. On the left is a dual SIM card tray, but there's no expandable memory slot, so it's a good thing there are 128 and 256 gigabyte storage options, because that's all you're gonna get. The right side has the volume and power keys, and unlike the Mate 20 Pro, there's a 3.5mm headphone jack at the top. Volume levels were about average, but the audio output had great accuracy. At the bottom is a loudspeaker, which scored a very good in our loudness test, but unfortunately it's very easy to block the speaker with your hand while playing games or watching videos.
Is a 25-megapixel selfie camera. Is it the most elegant solution? Maybe, maybe not.
Next to that is a USB-C port, which lets you charge the View 20 using the included 22.5 watt Huawei supercharger. On that note, when it comes to battery endurance, the View 20 managed an overall score of 96 hours, which was thanks to the phone's excellent standby time. The phone has a large 4000 mAh battery that can charge up to 59% in half an hour. There are also plenty of ways to save battery, including individual app preferences, a power optimizing tool, and there are a couple of power saving modes available as well. The View 20 has 2D face unlock, which uses the 25-megapixel selfie camera, and while it's not as secure as a fingerprint or password, it supports smart notifications, so the phone will only show your alerts when it sees your face. EMUI has actually recently been rebranded to Magic UI, and this phone has version 2.0 layered over Android Pie. Otherwise, if you have used a Huawei or Honor phone in the past couple of iterations, it's pretty much the same software. As before, there's no app drawer by default, but you can enable one in the settings. Or if you prefer, you can just install your own third-party launcher on there. The View 20 has navigation gestures to take full advantage of the display, and while it feels kinda clunky and unintuitive when I first switched to them, I found myself getting used to them after about a day. If you do want to use gesture navigation, just keep in mind that it won't play well with third-party launchers. When you go home, for some reason, it shows the recent apps every single time. When you take a screenshot, an icon appears over the display, which you can flick up to share, flick down to take a scrolling shot, swipe either way to dismiss it, or just tap it so you can edit it, crop, draw, and delete. Overall, Magic UI on the View 20 is well optimized and runs very quickly and will do anything you throw at it without an ounce of hesitation. This is also thanks to an in-house Kirin 980 CPU. It's the same high-end processor found in the Mate 20 Pro, so you know this phone means business when it comes to performance. You'll get either 6 or 8 GB of RAM, so multitasking and playing games will not be a problem on the View 20. There's a 48 megapixel Sony sensor with a secondary TOF or time of flight sensor. Now, because it can see in 3D, the View 20 will support real-time AR apps, a 3D body shaping feature, and Honor has even made a couple of games you can play with your whole body. Kinda like Xbox Kinect, but not exactly. The 48 megapixel camera has quad Bayer array for pixel binning, but what that all means is that it will take a 48 megapixel image and it will shrink it to a 12 megapixel picture, but it's gonna have much better details, much better dynamic range, and you're gonna get really good low light shots with this camera. So how did the View 20 do? Well, I have to say that this camera does not disappoint. Daytime shots were consistently great with excellent dynamic range, well-balanced exposures, and natural colors. Sharpness is also great, and I have to say that the quad Bayer camera feature works as advertised, so you're gonna wanna stick to shooting in 12 megapixels. But if you'd rather get the highest resolution image, you can shoot in the camera's native 48 megapixel resolution. But when you compare the shots, they look softer and a little bit noisier than the 12 megapixel photos. For this, there is an Ultra AI Clarity mode, which will give you the best and highest resolution image, but it takes a while to capture the photos, so it may not work well for moving objects. Social media apps don't even display this high of a resolution, so you're better off just sticking to the 12 megapixel setting and shooting all your photos with it. In low light, the View 20 did very well. There's a proper night capture mode that stacks several images into a single night shot, but it does take a few seconds to capture. Still, being able to capture photos like this without needing a tripod is almost mind-blowing. You'll only really need to use this mode when taking pictures in extremely low-lit scenes that might only have like a street lamp, because even in automatic, the phone can take very good nighttime shots as well. The View 20 can also take portrait photos, and the phone uses that TOF sensor to separate the subject from the background. But we found that the portrait mode's blur effect is about average, but inconsistent. We can only hope this improves with future firmware updates. The front camera is a 25 megapixel shooter, and selfies look pretty good. Sometimes a little too soft for my tastes, and it tends to brighten facial features, which can be flattering for selfies, but selfies are sometimes too cool toned and make me look too pale. To be fair, this tends to be the case with most Chinese phones. The View 20 can record 4K video at up to 30 frames per second, Full HD at up to 60 frames. The video quality itself is also great, colors are pleasant and natural looking, and noise levels are kept in check. The Honor View 20 is a very compelling smartphone. It has a nice and attractive hardware design, it has a large display with small bezels, it has excellent battery life, and it runs the top-of-the-line Kirin 980 CPU. The only real complaints I have about the phone are with the display. I find that the display could have been a little bit brighter for me, and the quality of the panel isn't really amazing. If I had to score it, I'd give it between a B- and a C+. So how much is it gonna cost? Well, the Honor View 20 is going for 569 euros, and it's priced very close to the OnePlus 6T. That category between $500 and $600 has seen some very fierce competition in the recent years. So if you're after the premium smartphone that doesn't cost the premium smartphone price, the Honor View 20 is a very compelling alternative to the Mate 20 Pro, and it costs a little more than half the price. Unfortunately, you will not find this phone in the United States. With the OnePlus 6T now available through T-Mobile, Honor will have a very hard time competing in that space. Thank you guys for sticking around, and please let us know your thoughts on the Honor View 20. Go ahead and leave your comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss more videos like this one. Check us out over at gsmarina.com for more specs, news, and reviews. I'm Ricky, signing off for GSM Marina, and thank you guys for watching.